Good morning, students. Today we will start the revision of the Geography Chapter 1, that is the Resource and Development. So, let's start the revision of this chapter, Resource and Development. See in the board, resource. Now the first question is, what is resource? We already know that resource means the things which is available in our environment and which can satisfy our need. Till now, we know the definition of resources but now three things also added in this definition. The definition of resource is everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs, and provided it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. Means the resources or the things which we get from the environment, it becomes resources when it is technologically accessible for us. Means through technology we can extract these resources. We should have technology to use that resources. And second is economically feasible, means which can be economically convenient to all the human beings of the world. So the things which can be made resources, it should be technologically accessible to everyone and economically feasible. And the last point is culturally acceptable, which has been accepted by the society of the country or the world. Culturally, it should be acceptable, technologically accessible, and economically feasible. So then a thing which we get from the environment become our resources, and through this thing, technologically, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable, we can satisfy our need by using that resources. So this is the definition, that everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs, provided it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable, then that thing is referred or termed as resources. Now, a thing transformed into resources when three things involved in it. These are nature, institution, technology. Then it will be used by the humans. Means there has been an interdependent relationship between these three things, that is the nature, institution, and technology. Then a thing become a resources and it can be used by the human. We all know that human itself is our resources. We are also resources, and it is us who can use these resources, who explore these resources through these institutions. In the nature, we get the resources, but without technology, we cannot explore that resources, or we cannot extract these resources. So for that, we need institution. Institution means organization. Organization, it develop technology to use that resources which is present on the nature. So to use the resources from the nature, we need these things, that is the institution and technology. And by using these things, nature, technology, and institution, it is the human who can satisfy their needs. So the process of transformation of things available in our environment involves an interdependent relationship between nature, technology, and institution. These three things are needed to get our resources, or to form a thing into a resources. Without these, we cannot extract or we cannot use these resources. Like electricity, to generate electricity, we are using water resources. Dams has been made on the rivers, and in the dams, various technology has been used to convert that hydel energy into electricity. And if we don't have this technology, then we cannot generate electricity. So through that example, you can understand that to use our resources or to convert a thing into resources, we need these three things, especially technology institutions we are needed. It has been made by the humans. Human itself made these things, and through that we can explore or use the resources. So there has been interdependent relationship between nature, institution and technology, which satisfy the needs of the human beings. So this is the definition of the resources. Next, we will understand the different types of resources. Resources are classified into four categories. First, on the basis of origin, that is biotic and abiotic. Second, on the basis of the exhaustibility. It involves renewable and non-renewable. Third, on the basis of ownership. It has four types of resources: individual, community, national, and international. Fourth one, on the basis of status of development. Status of development. Potential, developed, stock, and reserve. So these are the four categories in which resources has been divided. First, in the first category, it is on the basis of the origin, how it has been originated. It has two types of resources, that is biotic and abiotic. Biotic means the resources which are available in our environment and have life, means the living beings which has been available or present in our biosphere. That resources is called biotic resources. For example, human beings, animals, and plants. So, all the living creatures who are present in the biotic resource. The second type of resources under the basis of the origin, it is totally opposite of resources. In abiotic resources, available in but atmosphere, but they don't have life. And under the basis of the origin, biotic and abiotic resources. Biotic example is human being, flora and fauna, and abiotic soil, water, river, mountain, means which are present in the nature, we get from the environment originating through the nature but don't have life. That is called abiotic resource. Now comes in the second type of second category of the resource. It is on the basis of the exhaustibility. Means it is on the basis that it can be finished or not. So it has two types of resources, that is the renewable and non-renewable resources. Renewable means which can reproduced or regain, replenished again and again through physical, chemical and mechanical process in nature, in our environment. That resources is called as renewable resources. Its quantity is unlimited because it can generate again and again and replenish again and again. That's why it is termed as renewable, which can be renewed or reproduced. For example, wind energy, solar energy, water, forest, living beings, animals, they can also reproduce. So this type of resources is called as a renewable resources, which can be regenerate, reproduce again and again. Its quantity is unlimited. So this type of resources is called renewable resources. And the second under the basis of cannot be year to regenerate, which is a very slow process of regenerating. That's why it has a limited quantity. That's why it is termed as non-renewable, which cannot be renewed again and again. Its quantity is limited. For example, petroleum and fossil fuels, coal, all the fossil fuels, petroleum, minerals, these resources has took millions of years to uh, produce, and its quantity is limited. That's why it comes in this category, that is in the non-renewable resources. Renew means which can be renewed, reproduced, regained again and again. Its quantity is unlimited. Example, wind, solar energy, air, plants, water, animals. It is termed under the renewable resources. Non-renewable quantity is limited, which cannot be reproduced or regenerate. It took millions of years. Example, fossil fuels and minerals. The third category, on the basis of ownership, it has divided into four types. First is individual, community, national and international. Individual means which is owned by an individual person, like the property, plot, land, field, car, house. It is owned by an individual person, that is called as individual resources. And second is community resources. Community which can be owned by a group of people or a community. That resources is called community resources, like the public parks, ponds, river, especially in villages, picnic spots. This is owned by the community and it is used by the community. That's why it is termed as community resources. Third one is national resources. National resources means the resources which is under the control of a government, of a country, within the boundary of a country, and it is used by the people of that country within the boundary. That is termed as a national resources. And in coastal area, from coastal area up to the 12 nautical miles, that is the 22.2 kilometer, the resources of the ocean under this area is owned by the country. That resources is called as a national resources. Beyond the 12 nautical miles up to the 200 nautical miles, it is termed as exclusive economic zone. Means the countries which has coastal areas, they have right that they can go beyond the 12 nautical miles. They have right, so that they can explore the resources of that area under the 200 nautical miles. And beyond the 200 nautical miles, it has been termed as international resources. International resources means the resources which is owned by the international organization like United Nations. The resources which is beyond the 200 nautical miles from a coast of a country, that is termed as a international resource. Fourth is on the basis of the status of development, that is the potential, developed, stock and reserve. Potential means the resources which has abundant or available resources, but presently they are not using that resources. For example, in Rajasthan and Gujarat, they have potential to use the resources of wind. They can produce wind energy, but presently they are not using that resources in their area. So that area has a potential to use that resources in future. That's why that is termed as potential resources. Developed resources means the resources which is available in our area, and we know the quality and quantity of these resources. We have the existing technology to use that resources. Presently we are using that resources is termed as developed resources. Developed means the resources whose quantity and quality is known and we have technology to using that resources is known as developed resources. And the resources we are using presently is termed as developed resources. Third resources under this category, that is the stock. Stock resources means the resources which are available and we have knowledge about that resources, but we don't have technology to use that resources. But if we made the technology in future, we can use that resources. That's why it is termed as stock. For example, water. Water has two molecules, that is the oxygen and hydrogen. Both are inflammable gases. If we can separate from the water these gases, scientists believe that it can be used to generate energy. But presently, we don't have technology to use that gas to generate energy. That's why that type of resources is termed as stock. Presently, we know about the resources, but we don't have technology to use that resources. That type of resources is termed as stock. And the last resources under this category is reserve. Under this category of resource, reserve means that we know about the resources, we have the technology, but we are not using that resources presently in order to conserve that resources so that it can be used by the future generation. Like forest has been reserved, various areas of forest has been reserved so that it can be conserved. And likewise, various resources, some part of that resources has been considered as a reserve so that the future generation can use that resources. To save the resources, we have made various resources as a reserve. Means the resources, we know about that, but some part of that resources has been reserved, conserved, so it can be used in future. That type of resources is called reserve resource. So these are the four categories of the resources. Now write some revision questions related to this topic. With the question, try to write the answers of that questions. First is, what is resource? Second, name the resources on the basis of origin. Third, what do you mean renewable resource? Fourth, what is international resource? Fifth, name the resource on the basis of the status of development. Name the resources on the basis of the status of development. Write it down. Okay. Now listen the answers of these questions carefully and check the answers which you have written. First question is, what is resource? In the first, we have already seen the definition of the resources, that is everything which is available in our environment and which can be used to satisfy our needs. It is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable, are termed as resource. Second, name the resource on the basis of the origin. The answer is biotic and abiotic. Third, what do you mean by renewable resource? The resources which can be renewed, reproduced, replenished again and again through the physical, chemical and mechanical process, and whose quantity is unlimited. That resources is termed as renewable resources. Example, wind energy, solar energy, water, forest, animals and animals. So these are the examples of the renewable resources. Fourth, what is international resources? The resources which is under the control of international organization, which is under the control and regulated by the international organization, and in ocean beyond the 200 nautical miles of exclusive economic zone. That resources owned by the international organization. That type of resources is called as international resources. Fifth, name the resources on the basis of the status of development. There are 4 types of resources under this category. First, potential. Second, developed. Third, stock. And fourth, reserve. So these are the answers of these questions. In the next session, we will do the next topic. For today, that's all. Thank you, class.